had some guys who were hurt. Tito, Mike Martinez, kind of leg. Do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, we'll just see where they are this week and what the process is and how much they can do during the course of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and listen to our trainers and tell us where they are. So
There's somebody who's definitely out for Saturday.
not right now, no.
Your defense, particularly in secondary, gave up some pretty big cushions in that game. Can you tell us the thinking about the cushions in the secondary?
The what?
Cushions in the secondary, playing off.
Yeah, we were off a
receivers.
little bit. I think trying to keep the ball in front of us, rally up, make tackles. So we need to tighten that up this week.
You mentioned you needed to look at the film to see how the D-line did after Otito was out. How do you think the D-line did?
Those guys did a good job. I think the effort we got out of those guys was pretty good. We got to do some work going into the one-on-one individual battles and pass rush things. Those are things we'll continue to work on and drill as a coaching staff. But really pleased with their effort. We got a bunch of guys that play very, very hard and compete very hard up there. So.
Did you have input on the defense as the game's unfolding and say, if I want to move these guys up into press coverage or whatever?
We talked about that, and we did that in the second half. So if you studied the game, we played a lot more cover two, hard corners in the second half, but a lot more press man in the second half.
Their last two scores were essentially the same play. What were the breakdowns from those?
Say that again?
Their last two touchdown passes were essentially the same.
There was a wheel
play.
route by number 2. One of them we were pressuring from the field, and Hayner made a great job of getting out of the rush and giving himself a little bit more time so that he could get the ball off to the far corner. And on the second one, it was similar, not the same pressure, but a different pressure. But I got to give the quarterback credit on making a really good play. He's a hell of a football pro.
How much did fatigue come into play with your defense in those last couple of drives of being on the field so much?
I don't think that's a factor. I think you got to play. Their offense was on the field the same amount of time as our defense was on the field. So, I think that's always a big misconception. Well, the defense is tired. Well, the offense is on the field the same amount of time. So, those same 5 offensive linemen played the entire game for him. Hayner played the entire game for him. So, if the game unfolds that way, we just have to compete and be able to play till the end.
Did you see that he was at least kind of nicked up in that last series, like he wasn't very mobile with his hip? And
yeah.
Would you have changed?
No, I mean the last play that he scored on, we pressured him. So we brought multiple guys coming from the field after the kid. So we weren't sitting back and playing coverage on that play. So again, you got to give him credit. He made a hell of a play, and a guy that got hit a lot. I talked to him briefly after the game. He was a banged up kid, but it was one of the all-time best efforts I've seen out of a quarterback.
Do you see any other kind of quarterbacks on your schedule that have his kind of skill set and experience?
I don't. I'm not looking at the rest of the guy. I haven't studied who we're playing after. We're playing Tanner McKee this week, who's done a really nice job in the last 2 weeks. Did a great job in beating SC. Did a great job last week against Vanderbilt. So we just kind of focus on who we got on a weekly basis. So I didn't come out of the Fresno. I came out of the Fresno game with great respect for Hayner, as good as I've seen in a long time, in a one-on-one game that I've had an opportunity to coach against a guy. But I didn't look at that and say, hey, who else do we have on our schedule that looks like him?
McKee's the local guy. Was that someone that you guys were interested in?
He went to Corona Centennial and then left to go on a Mormon mission. So he was gone for a couple of years. I think David got him out of high school, and then he went away for a while and then came back. So he's older too. I think that was maybe before I was here or right when I just got here. So he's an older. He's not a traditional. I don't know what he's listed at now. Is he a junior?
I don't know anymore with the pandemic.
Yeah, I don't know.
Redshirt freshman or something like that.
He's
still listed pretty young. Stanford doesn't do redshirt, so he might be a sophomore.
Yeah, but he went on a 2-year mission coming out of high school, so you're talking back to 17 or so.
Zach Charbonnet, only 6 touches in that game, 2 touchdowns.
I think kind of the course of how the game unfolded. We didn't have the ball very much. First drive, we were moving it. We get a first down, but when we had a penalty called against us. So now you're down a little bit. You're throwing the ball a little bit more. It's just, again, you go into the game, thinking a lot of things like, how are we going to try to do this? What is our game plan? But you have to be balanced in your approach because you don't know where you are. So we threw the ball a little bit more. We did not have the ball enough. We didn't sustain the ball. And I think a couple of those drives had 2 holding penalties really hurt some of our drives and put us back where we had a punt in those situations instead of getting the ball moving a little bit. Now you got more snaps within a drive, and then you can get the ball spread around a little bit.
Did they unveil a pretty good blueprint on how to stop your running game, do you think?
No, I mean they played hard. I think we have to be more consistent in terms of what we do, and then also the score on the other side dictates it a little bit. You're down a little bit, but again, it's a whole encompassing. What's the score of the game? Where are you at in the game, and how are things going? So.
Dorian, we've seen the ball slip out of his hands on that play a couple of times. Is that a mechanical problem?
No, he just said on that issue that the ball was wet and didn't get a good grip on it. So.
What about going for 2 up 4? What was the thinking there?
to try to make it a 6 because 5 doesn't do anything for you?
Well, if you're up by 5 and Fresno scores a TD, then you're down 2, and you can milk the clock for a game-winning field goal.
Or you can get a game-tying field goal if you're up by 6. So it doesn't, neither of it mattered. You could still tie the football game.
I'm trying to think through this.
Being up 4 or 5 is the same exact thing. It takes 6 to beat you. Correct? If you're up 4 and they score 6, you lose. If you're up 5 and you're up 6, you lose. So you'd like to be up 6.
You don't need
You'd like to be up 6.
Okay, but you didn't necessarily. If you had gotten the 1 and you wouldn't needed a touchdown regardless, you could have just kicked a game-winning field goal.
True.
Right.
And if we scored a touchdown, we would have won by 4.
Okay. Maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah. You'd like to be up 6. You block the extra point, then it's a tie ball game. They're not beating you. And there was a 1-possession game, so that was our thought. Being up 4, being up 5 doesn't matter. You want to be up 6 or 7. Make sense?
Got a first road game this season coming up. Is that challenging with COVID still going on? Is that something that you guys are still prepared for from last year?
Everything with COVID, and that's the one thing we got to impress upon our players as school starts this week is that, the Delta variant is still out there. It's not, it hasn't gone away. Our players have been good protecting our ecosystem, but as you start to add more students to campus, the atmosphere around here is going to be a little bit different, but they have to understand, that they've got a lot at stake. So we have pretty good travel protocols that we went through last year, so we've got experience doing that. But again, that's always a really big deal. When we bus up to the games, we wear masks because we do have a few unvaccinated players. It'll be the same thing when we're on the plane, just to help take care of and protect those guys. But all of us got to make sure we don't drop our guard on this thing because it's still out there. And there have been players, coaches. Coach Kiffin, Lane missed the opening game at Ole Miss. There's been coaches that have been out, and I don't know. Not a lot of people are reporting, but I would imagine there's been a player or two that's been held out. I know in I think the Saints yesterday, coached with 8 coaches. They were down 6 or 8 coaches, I think I read. So, it's obviously something that's still out there, and we have to be hyper vigilant in terms of where we are because we can't afford to not have anybody, whether it's an administrator or a coach or a player out here. So.
And it's also the first road environment you're playing on the field too. How do you prepare for that in practice this week?
We always use music, so if you can, to just simulate crowd noise, so you can communicate where you are. So we were up at Stanford 2 years ago. They came here last year, so we understand that environment a little bit. There's a lot of guys that are on this team that played on that team 2 years ago, so they've been there. But there are some new guys. It'll be their first trip, so we'll make sure we break them in the right way.
All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.